Yes, can you go ahead?
Good
Oh,
afternoon.
is that GTB board?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Good
can
afternoon.
you start from the chair? Okay.
Good afternoon. I am Manesana, board member, and I'm deputizing for our chairman, who is unfortunately not feeling very well.
Good afternoon, members. My name is Abubakar Eskama. I'm the member of the
Good afternoon, honorable members. I'm George Innes, Head of Finance.
Good afternoon, honorable members. I'm Omar Diallo, audit partner, Accord Associate, External Auditors.
Good afternoon, honorable members. My name is Lani Jata, managing partner of Associates, External Auditors.
Good afternoon, honorable members. I am Sam Silva, Head of Product Development Investment at the Gambia Tourism Board.
Good afternoon, my name is Bram Kanjira from GTB.
Good afternoon, my name is Mohammed Savana, GBP.
And good afternoon, my name is Sayar Sambu, Senior Manager, Human Resources and Administration, the Tourism Board.
Good afternoon, honorable. I am Lami Eboda, Internal Audit Manager, Ghana Tourism Board.
Good afternoon, I am Jeti Janjo, Agent of the Gambia Tourism Board.
Good afternoon. My name is Kamal Sana, Head of Quality Control, Licensing and Enforcement, Gambia Tourism Board.
Thank you very much for that introduction. The proposal is that this August committee, that is the tourism committee, to allow the Gambia Tourism Board to present its reports for the year ended 31st December 2018 and the 31st December 2019 respectively. How we're going to do it, we start with the 2018 first, since we don't have time. Then after the presentation of the 2018, then we can have the 2019 to be presented. The way we do, we welcome the institution that is the GTB board as the witness to present their report, their three report by the managing director, the financial statement by the finance director, the managing data by the external auditor, and then the GBA compliance report. It is the prerogative of the chairperson to do the presentation or any other person, the managing director, to do the presentation on his or her behalf. Now we can now give or hand over the baton to the chairperson of the board to do the presentation of the first, the 2018 report, as I mentioned earlier.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairman of the National Assembly Committee. Thank you also other members of the committee for welcoming us here in this August forum. We will not take too much of your time, and that will be the case. I would like to hand over to the Director General to make his presentation.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, Chairman, Honorable Chairman, and members of this August Assembly, the clerk of GBA, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I have the honor and pleasure to present to this August Assembly a brief summary of the activity reports of Gambia Tourism Board for the year ending 2018 and 2019. By way of update, the Gambia Tourism Board is the institution mandated by government through an act of parliament.
The text that you are reading from, is it in line with what is in the report?
This one, sorry?
Is it in line with?
Very well.
Can you take us to the page?
Page introduction, page 1.
In the background, the background,
Text introduction. Chairman, I said a brief summary of the report.
yeah, but really,
We want to go.
even if you summarize, you should also have the copy of that summary as well.
Okay, I didn't know that. I should have been present with it, but I have a copy.
Okay.
that I printed. In case my computer fails, that's why I get this back.
Are you going to copy? So what do we do?
We need to
Going to continue.
Let's continue and go on to the.
Is that okay, members?
Go on to the, let him continue.
Thank you, Chairman. As I said, I made a introduction of the mandate of the Gambia Tourism Board. The Gambia Tourism Board is the institution mandated by government through an act of parliament to promote the Gambia as a tourism destination. The Gambia Tourism Board Act 2011 and the Gambia Tourism Regulation 2011 established the mandate of the Gambia Tourism Board. Mr. Chairman, tourism has been identified as one of the economic drivers in the overall efforts at the national development in terms of wealth and employment generation, diversification of the economy, investment generation, socio-cultural development, as well as preservation of the unique biodiversity of the Smiling Coast. Thus, the National Development Plan has tasked the tourism sector to boost arrivals to 350,000, as well as increasing economic gains in terms of GDP contribution. Mr. Chairman, it is worth mentioning that in this government, tourism has clearly been given pride of place in the overall national development endeavors, and in fact, that's been elevated as one of the priority sector of the national economy. With a very good operating environment and clearly spelled out political commitment, the Gambia Tourism Board was able to discharge its mandate with vigor, and as such, a range of efforts were discharged at the level of the various functional departments of the board with a view to increasing visibility of Destination Gambia, improving the scope and variety of the tourism product, as well as placing emphasis on the quality service delivery. Principal initiatives include, but not limited to the following: implementation of the 60 action point of the Gambia Tourism Board 5-year business plan, rebranding of the destination as a tourist paradise through adoption of informed marketing strategies in collaboration with partners that share the overriding objective of growing the arrival numbers of the destination. Enhancement and development of the product suite of destination with the sole objective of broadening tourism, product base, and improving product quality. Building of an governance and defined institutional organogram guided by a performance-oriented culture. Mr. Chairman, the annual report for year ending 2018, as rightly mentioned, that the last week report year after year. I want to take the opportunity to say that I'm going for year 2018 ending, which actually endeavored to comply with the GTB statutory obligations under the Act to report on the activities during the preceding year. The report seeks to highlight the achievement and success stories of the board, outlining the constraints and propose strategies to reduce these, whilst at the same time setting out the outlook for the coming year. The primary function of the GT board is to promote and market Gambia as an interesting and exciting destination with appropriate promotional and marketing tools and strategies. In support of that function, other departments including quality control, licensing and enforcement, development, investment and culture, as well as finance and admin were established to serve as a functional and technical wing of the board. Therefore, broadening the range and scope of the tourism product to make Destination Gambia interesting and exciting, at the same time consolidating and diversification of the tourism source markets have been key priority areas for the GT board during the year under review, which is 2018. This is in line with the lofty vision and goal of the board to make the Gambia an all-year-round destination and to attract ideal high-spending tourists who will not only visit Smiling Coast but leave a positive footprint. The vision seeks to attract tourists who will also be rewarded with a great experience in the Smiling Coast, whose visit will in turn lead to growth in tourism numbers, extended stays, increased spending, reduced seasonality, and improved geographic spread. This encompasses the broader strategic goal of the GTB board to make tourism the engine of national development. Office of the Dutch Journal. The Office of the Dutch Journal is responsible for the strategic direction of the board, corporate issues, legal, public relations, corporate planning, and ensuring that there is board strategic fit and departmental alignment in attainment of the board's goals and objectives. At the same time, serve as conduit between the board of directors and the line ministry and other stakeholders, both locally and abroad. The report seeks to highlight the efforts of the board in the following functional thematic areas, starting with the highlight of the overview and functions. Marketing department. Discharging the core function, which is the marketing department. Generate destination marketing strategies, targeted marketing activities and consumer marketing, marketing communications, e-marketing, marketing research and analysis. Product development, investment and culture, the key functions, strategy, land use and planning, ongoing projects, tourism product development. Quality control, licensing and enforcement department, which is vital for ensuring standards and overall service delivery. Streamlining of licensing procedures, inspection of tourism and hospitality establishment, hotel classification, and quality control and enforcement. Functions of the finance and administration, ensuring that the board is liquid to discharge its mandate. Revenue generation and income analysis, resource management, both human and financial, expenditure analysis. Overview of the activity of the core functional departments. In 2018, the marketing department continued to concentrate on aggressive marketing of destination Gambia to increase the tourist arrivals, to contribute to the GDP of the Gambia. As such, the department undertook many activities during this period, and this included farm trips, road shows, e-marketing activities, strategic selected road shows, joint marketing and appointment of destination managers to take charge of our main source markets. Countries selected included United Kingdom, Spain, Scandinavia, and Saudi Arabia. This was in line with the new strategic direction of the Ministry of Tourism and Culture with the Gambia Tourism Board, which replaces the traditional approach of engaging PR firms as representative of the Gambia in our selected source markets. The target of the tourist arrivals by 2021 as per the NDP of the Gambia is 350,000. It is important to note that in 2018, projection of arrivals was 200,000, which has been achieved thanks, among others, to arrival of FTI, an increase in flight frequency from Brussels Airlines, Corendon to Moscow. Specifically, the marketing activities undertaken in 2018 with the objective to enhancing visibility of destination Gambia were local awareness on tourism products and services in the Gambia, trade fairs, consolidate and improve the e-marketing platform to increase the number of website visitors, farm trips, joint marketing, airline promotional activities, research, and tourism arrival statistics. Under the product development department, the department was able to allocate land for investment to 10 investors to build 4- and 5-star hotels in Tange TDA. Quality control and enforcement. In 2018, a revised hotel classification and service standard manual was validated. The aim of the hotel classification is to increase the quality of services and standards for hotels in the Gambia. This will enable setting up of a national and international benchmark for operational systems of hotels and maintaining minimum operational standards. This is very significant in harnessing existing hotel standards and services into one national policy-guided manual. The expected outcome of this activity is to increase guest satisfaction, number of arrivals, ensure enforcement of set standards, and establish a competitive market with fairness and equity. Under the inspection of tourism establishments, the quality control department maintains quality control and assurance through the inspection of quality for tourism establishments to ensure minimum standards are met. In the year under review, these routine inspections were conducted using inspection checklists designed to look at critical areas of health, safety, comfort, satisfaction, and service delivery. upcountry tourism facilities. Tourism facilities in the interior of the country are consistently poorly managed and maintained as far as standards are concerned. The initial design and construction of these facilities, especially guest houses and lodges, are done without set standards, and this causes structural and infrastructural challenges for keeping the standards. Additionally, poor road network and lack of basic amenities such as electricity and water supply makes it very difficult for this establishment to attract guests and therefore run into financial difficulties. In the year under review, a vigorous follow-up inspection was carried out on all on-country guest houses in August 2018. The main aim of the inspection was to engage stakeholders up-country on the recommendations made from a previous up-country inspection that was conducted in May of the same year. During this period, notices were given to such guest houses to act on their recommendation on or before 30th September 2018, failure of which led to the actual enforcement of closure of some of these facilities off-country. Tourism Regulations 2011. The legal framework around the licensing procedure and the enforcement is not sufficient to allow the board to efficiently conduct enforcement of licensing and standards. Examples include conflicting interests with councils and the FSQA, which is the Food Safety and Quality Authority, closure of businesses that are found wanting, and enforcement of nuisances with emphasis on noise pollution. This has been tabled several times at the AG chambers, and we have defended the position of the board successfully. Nonetheless, efforts were being made to update the laws in order to bring distinct clarity. For instance, the Act and the Regulation 2011 were being reviewed to properly address the evolving business situation and introduce best regulatory framework for the tourism industry. Reduce harassment, crime, and nuisances within the tourism industry. The enforcement unit of the department, the tourism security unit, and other sister forces to consultations patrol the tourism development area in efforts to curb illegal activities within the TDA, such as bumpsters, promoters, hawkers, and noise pollution. Joint enforcement exercises were conducted with the tourism security unit, Gambia Immigration Department, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, the State Intelligence Services in 2018, and the bumpsters were arrested. As per the law, they were detained and cautioned and discharged within 72 hours. Search for illegal tourism businesses. In 2018, the Gambia Tourism, the duty board enforcement officers conducted search for illegal tourism-related businesses. Example, guest houses, lodges, motels, etc. And some illegal businesses were identified in the areas of Brufut, Yundum, and Bigoro area. Their owners were engaged about the duty board operational license requirement. These owners also came and regularized, except for a few who claimed to be having NGO status as charitable organizations. Overview of the activities of Finance and Administration Departments. The main objective of the Finance and Admin Department is to achieve the most effective and efficient utilization of resources, control and manage all funds and assets of the duty board. In addition, Finance and Admin ensures that budgeting and audit procedures follow government guidelines. In carrying out its mandate, the department continues to be guided by an approved budget, duty board budget, financial procedures, GBP regulations of 2003, the international accounting standards and generally accepted accounting principles, and the strategic guidance of governing body. Income analysis. During the year 2018, the duty board realized an overall income of 139.2 million as compared to 116.4 million over 2017, which showed an increase of 20.8 million, which is 17.87%, which is mainly attributed to the increase in arrival numbers. Operational license fees, we recorded an increase of 6.8 million, that's 39.3%, as well as land processing fee of 0.83 million, which is represent about 237.14% as compared to the previous year. Honorable Chairman, members of the August Assembly, in conclusion, the duty board has indeed registered impressive gains in 2018 due to a range of factors, including improved governance environment, political support at policy level, as well as a close and beneficial public-private partnership. In the area of arrival numbers, some games were registered and 12% improvement on 2017 due to a range of factors which have been outlined in this report. Chairman, this is the report for 2018.
Thank you. Presentation. Financial statement for the 2018. For your information, we are both in 2018 and 19. Summary in your text.
We move on straight to the financial statement for the year ended.
Can you take us through the page?
Yeah. 31st December 2018. We move on to page 10. That is statement of income and expenditure. That is financial statement, page 10. On the financial statement, page 10. We are all there? Okay, statement of income and expenditure for the year ended 31st December 2018. Now, during the period under review, which is 2018, the board realized an overall income of 137,170,804 as compared to 116,404,420 in 2017, which shows increment of 20.8 million over 2017, that is 18%. Now this total income comprises of government subvention of 2,750,000 as compared to nil in 2017. Operating income was 19.9 million, sorry, 131,358,970 as compared to 111,463,456. This shows an increase of 19.9 million or 18%. Other income, 3,361,834 as compared to 3,872,042. They show a drop of 510,000, that is 14%. Gain on foreign exchange or loss. In 2018, we had a loss of 300,000 as compared to a gain in 2017 of 1,068,922. This shows a decrease of 128%. Expenditure for the year under review 2018. Marketing expenses. As of 2018, it was 58,214,077 as compared to 58,140,570 in 2017. This shows an increase of 74,000, that is 1%. Finance charges, that is bank charges. As of 2018, it was 716,313 as opposed to 575,695 in 2017. This shows an increase of 141,000, which is 25%. Staff cost. For the year 2018, staff costs amount to 26,597,206 as opposed to 20,256,200. This shows an increment of 6.3 million, which is 32%. Administrative cost. 2018, 20,431,054 as opposed to 14,562,112. This shows an increment of 5.9 million, which is 41%. TSU cost. In 2018, 1,143,761 as opposed to 1,205,534. This shows an increment of 62,000. This shows a decrease, of 62,000, which is 6%. Repair and maintenance, 2018, 8,327,256 as opposed to 5,237,320. This shows an increment of 3.1 million, which is 59%. Bad debt. This is a provision, which is a law, which is mandatory. In 2018, we made a provision of 3,845,251 as opposed to 3,956,283. This shows a drop of 111,000. That is 3%. Depreciation charges are 2018 4,082,754 as opposed to 4,157,852 in 2017. This shows a decrease of 75,000. That is 2%. Total expenditure for 2018, 123,357,672 as opposed to 108,091,566. This shows an increment of 15.1 million, which is 15% over 2017. Now, our operating surplus before the UNWTO is in 2018 13,813,132 as opposed to 8,312,854 in 2017. This shows an increment of 5.5 million, which is 67%. Now, UNWTO, this is the contribution that we do on behalf of government. In 2018 is 1,472,845 as opposed to 1,365,729. This shows an increment of 107,000, which is 8%. Now, subtracting the operating surplus from the UNWTO, the surplus or profit for the year ended 31st December 2018 is 12,340,287 as opposed to 6,947,125 in 2017. This shows an increment of 5.4 million or 78%. Now we move on to page 11, that is the statement of financial position. Now, the non-current asset, that is the property, plant, and equipment, for the year 2018 stands at 15,529,725 as opposed to 15,034,929. This shows an increment of 495,000, which is 4% over 2017. Current assets, that is trade and other receivables. For the year under review, 2018, 57,050,778, as opposed to 47,775,165. This shows an increment of 9.3 million, which is 20%. Cash at bank and in hand. For the year under review, 2018, 26,426,359, as opposed to 9,237,167. This shows an increment of 17.2 million, that is 186%. Fixed deposit investment. For the year under review, 11,404,510, as opposed to 404,510. This shows an increment of 11 million, that is 272%. The total current assets for the year ended 31st December 2018 is 94,881,647 as opposed to 57,416,842. Now, that's the total current asset. Now, the total asset, that is the non-current asset and the current asset, total to 110,411,372 as opposed to 72,451,771. This shows an increment of 38 million, which is 53%. Equity and liabilities. Capital funding. Some years back, we received a government grant to construct the BB craft market. So every year we amortize, on a yearly basis we amortize and then take part of it to our revenue account. So for the year ended 31st December 2018, it was 565,000, which we do amortize every year. So you can see it's the same amount. So in 2018 it was nil. By then we have already exhausted the amortized amount, that is 565,000. So in 2018 it's nil. Now our retained earnings is 57,406,483 as opposed to 45,066,196. This shows an increment of 12.3 million, which is 28%. Our current liabilities, trade and other payables. For the year ended 31st December 2018 was 19,699,644 as opposed to 13,092,773. This shows an increment of 6.6 million, which is 51%. TDA levy for the year under review was 19,577,443. In 2017 it was nil, because in 2017 we haven't introduced that levy, so that's why it's nil. TDA deposit 2018 as of 2018 was 13,727,802, which was the same also in 2017. So our total current liabilities for 2018 was 53,004,889 as opposed to 26,820,575. This shows an increment of 26.2 million or 98%. So our total equity and liabilities at the end of 31st December 2018 was 110,411,372 as opposed to 72,451,771. So there was an increment in our total assets by 37.96, which is 53%. Now page 12, statement of changes in equity. For the year ended 31st December 2018, our earnings went up to 57,406,483 as opposed to 45,066,196. This was mentioned in the financial when I was reading the financial statement. So it's the same, and then the cash flow also, page 13. Statement of cash flow for the year ended 31st December 2018. I'm not sure whether I should go through the whole list. So at the end of December 31st, 2018, it was 37,830,868 as opposed to 9,641,677. This shows an increment of 28.19 million. So I think, yeah, that's the end.
Thank you. Management letter that is
Good afternoon once again, Honorable Chair and Honorable members. We welcome you to the management letter for the year ended 31st December 2018. The first item there is the transmittal letter.
Can you take us through the page?
Page 2. Page 2. So now our letterhead is the transmittal letter. Management letter. Then page 3 is the table of contents. And page 4 is the executive summary. The executive summary. It highlights there the arrangement, the risk factors. There is like a traffic light arrangement where you have the low risk, the medium risk, and the high risk, denoted by the green, the yellow, and the red. Then we can move on to the first point, that is on page 6. Page 6. Those are the internal control issues. Yeah. That's on the financial statement. That's on page 7. Supposed to be page 7, which is on our letterhead. Seven on the financial statement.
We go back to the financial statement.
To the financial statement where he was mentioning the figures. We can read the whole thing or just the audit opinion if you to save time, just the opinion. Yes. Independent auditors report to the board members of Gambia Tourism Board. Opinion. We have audited the financial statements of Gambia Tourism Board set out on pages 10 to 23, which comprise the statement of financial position as at 31st December 2018, the statement of profit or loss, the statement of changes in equity, and the statement of cash flows for the year then ended, and the notes to the financial statements, including a summary of significant accounting policies. In our opinion, the financial statements present fairly, in all material respects, the financial position of the entity and the financial performance and the cash flows for the year then ended, in accordance with the requirements of the Companies Act 2013 and the Gambia Tourism Board Act 2011. That's the opinion. We can now move on to the management letter. The first item is on page 6. Yes, that's the internal control issues. That's 2.1. Internal audit function is classified as medium risk. An internal audit function is very important in an organization as it strengthens the organization's controls and operating efficiency. Internal audit function provides an insight on possible causes of fraud and provide an efficient measure to prevent its occurrence. Observation. During our review of the internal audit function, we noted that they are not reporting directly to the board or board audit committee. Instead, they report to the Director General. We also have not seen evidence that the annual work plan has been reviewed and approved by the board of directors or management. Additionally, all the reports issued by the department during the period under review are in draft stage and have not been finalized and signed off. Implications. Lack of direct reporting to the board or board audit committee could affect the independence of the internal audit department. Without board or management approval, the annual work plan would not have the required weight, and that may affect the implementation. Leaving the final reports in draft stage for a long time may affect the timely implementation of internal audit recommendations. Management should ensure that there is direct reporting to the board or audit committee. Management should also ensure that the annual work plan of the internal audit is reviewed, approved, and signed off before implementation begins. We also recommend management to speed up finalization of internal audit reports so that recommendations can be implemented in timely manner.
We agreed with your observation. However, the governing body in its meeting of 21st February 2019 set up the audit committee which the internal auditor will report directly to now. The work plans of the internal audit will now henceforth be submitted to the management, then the governing body for approval.
Okay, the next point is 3, that's accounting issues. 3.1, capitalization policies, high risk. Observations. During our audits, we noted that the client has no capitalization policy in place. The financial policy manual provided was in soft copy and does not contain any section that deals with the treatment of the fixed assets. Implications. The issues noted above are indications that the financial policy manual is incomplete and not up to date. It does not contain key requirements affecting the fixed assets. Recommendations. Management should ensure that a detailed accounting policy and procedures manual designed for GT board is validated and approved by authorized signatories. The manual should adequately deal with issues relating to fixed assets of the entity.
We agreed with your recommendation. The finance manual approved in 2012 will now be reviewed, revised, and updated to cover all fixed assets issues highlighted.
Next point, 3.2, that's fixed assets management, high risk. Observation. During our review of fixed assets, we observed that the foreign assets were not tagged. The table indicated those affected. So we have the furniture and fittings, final cabinet, and under the computers, we have laptops that are detailed there, which were also not tagged. Implications. Fixed assets tagging is a good practice in the pursuit of better fixed asset physical control. Putting tags on fixed assets not only help custodians to find the fixed assets during a physical verification session, but also sends a strong signal to other people that the assets are under close supervision. Recommendations. Management should ensure that all assets are uniquely tagged physically and in the assets register, ensuring that the control totals for fixed assets on the general ledger are represented by actual assets.
We agreed with your recommendation and the said fixed assets had been tapped.
3.3, revenue is also high risk. Observations. During our review of revenue, it was noted that the governing body and the cabinet approved TDA levy as 10% of the project value for investors that do not undertake joint ventures with the board, and 2.5% for those that undertake public-private partnership, as PPP, with the board holding a minimum of 20% equity. The TDA levy for 10% was further revised and reduced to 5% by cabinet. However, out of our selected transactions of TDA levy tested, one of the samples was charged with TDA levy of 10%. And the list is provided there on the table. Then implications. TDA levy is a significant source of revenue for the entity, and inconsistency in changing the required levy could lead to potential under or overcharges to clients and potential investors. Recommendations. We recommend that the entity review the TDA levy and apply the rates consistently.
The cabinet approved for 10% was revised to 5%. The levy charge is based on the date that payment was made.
Next one is 3.4, that's receivables, ex-staff loans, medium risk. Observations. During our review of receivables, we observed that the following ex-employees were not servicing their outstanding loan balances with the board. See the total number there, 179,166.75. Implications. Once staff leave without settling their outstanding loans, it would be more difficult to follow up and collect those amounts. This may eventually lead to financial losses for the entity. Recommendations. Management should ensure that adequate follow-ups are made to recover outstanding loan balances, and long outstanding amounts should be provided for and subsequently written off.
The ex-staff had been written to several times, and legal action will commence for the full recovery of the amount.
Next point, 3.5, payroll. Pension contributions, medium risk. Observations. It was observed that the pension contribution for the month of February and March 2018 has not been paid on time. The payments were made on the 25th April 2018 instead of the 15th of the subsequent month. Contributions for the month of April and May were also paid on the 23rd May and 22nd July 2018 respectively. Implications. Lack of timely payment of pension contributions indicates non-compliance with regulations. This can attract penalties and interest. Recommendations. Management should ensure that statutory deductions made from employees' pay are remitted to the appropriate authorities on time to avoid any possible penalties and interest charges.
We agreed with your recommendation and will ensure going forward all payments are done on time.
Next point, 3.6, that's payroll. Still, that's that one high risk. Observation. During our review, we noted that $443,210 is 10 butus was paid to GRA through a bank transfer as payee for the month of July, August, and September 2018. No receipt was provided to us as evidence of this payment. Implications. We have been unable to ascertain and confirm that completeness of the above transactions in the absence of the required supporting documents. Recommendations. Management should ensure that all the entities' transactions are supported and supporting documents are properly filed in a sequential order for ease of retrieval when needed.
We agree with your recommendation. Henceforth, all supporting documents will be filed for your review.
Okay, then we come to the end. The rest is the status of the prior year ML, that is the previous year's points that we are raising in management. Thank you very much.
Now can we have the EPA to present the compliance report?
No.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members from GT board. I am here to present the annual compliance review report for the GTB for Gambia Tourism Board for 1st January to 31st December 2018 and 1st of January to 31st December 2019, respectively. I'll go straight to number 9, page 9, chapter 3. Findings. Chapter 3, page 9.
I just distributing the copies.
Okay.
I don't? Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Findings, observations, and recommendations. This chapter presents the general findings and recommendations based on the observations, interviews, and analysis of the procurement, disposal, and inventory management functions, including the relevant documents and information that was provided. The specific findings of the conduct of the procurement process regarding the example case is given in the next chapter. Page 10. Function of the accounting officer. Findings. The accounting officer performed the following functions satisfactorily in accordance with the Act Section 47, 3, 4, and 5. Non-compliance. The accounting officer did not ensure that the procurement organization properly documents payment proceedings and manage records in accordance with the Act and Act Section 35. The accounting officer did not appoint members of the Inspection and Acceptance Committee as required by GPPR Section 132, 134, and 135. Implications: it will be difficult to ascertain whether the accounting officer is monitoring and in control of the procurement process as expected. Lack of inspection and acceptance committee may lead to poor quality and wrong quantity of supply materials. Recommendations: the accounting officer should appoint members of the inspection and acceptance committee as required by the regulation. The accounting officer should ensure a proper inventory is maintained for accountability purposes. The accounting officer should ensure the SPU are totally independent in their operations.
Before we respond, can we make something clear? That we just received this this morning. And the draft that we received first, we send our the information that we gathered, because some of the points that they highlighted, we are not in agreement with it. So we sent some of the information to them. But we were surprised when we were going through, we were surprised that some of those issues that we had with them are still reflected here. And we provided the document. So I don't know how we're going to go about with this.
Yeah, can you furnish us with those information? If they are not in line with your current position, you can furnish us what your current position is.
Okay.
And you may provide us a copy of that.
Is there? Okay, that's fine. Non-compliance issue. We did not agree with bullet point 1 and 4 of the non-compliant as highlighted in red above based on the reason below. The procurement plan for 2018 and 2019 respectively were duly signed and submitted to GPPA, of which approval has been received. All GT board procurement activities are strictly carried out by SPU, as can be verified from the documentation. We have implemented the recommendation of appointing examination and receipt committee as required by the regulation in year 2019. You can see the attached letter for your review. Our SPU comprises of 2 staff and they are total independent in executing their function as required by the GPPA regulation. There has never been a case of reported interference in their functions.
Functions of specialized procurement unit.
Honorable Chair, please, can we read the non-compliance aspect of the report rather than reading the whole aspect of the report, if possible, please?
Non-compliance?
Yes.
There you go.
Non-compliance. The SPU does not conduct page 12, non-compliance. The SPU does not conduct periodic market survey. Implications: failing to conduct periodic market survey may make it difficult for SPU to determine the best quality and price of the goods services to be procured. On-report procurement are enacted. Eminent transparency of the procurement process could be compromised. Procurement fraud is imminent. Recommendation: the SPU should ensure a periodic market research is carried out and inform the contracts committee accordingly. The procurement organization should address all the weaknesses identified on the function of the SPU. The SPU should be responsible for all pockets of the GTB.
Ratification is prepared on SPU staff mentioned above in the table in 2018 and 2019 respectively. So in 2018, the SPU was headed by, Fatou Cisse Jaju and Aissatou Badji as assistant, while Mamika was an intern serving at the reception and was employed in the SPU in November 2019. Furthermore, Fatou Cisse is a SIPS qualified and has attended several GTB in-house training together with Aissatou Baji, who was also undergoing SIPS program. On the non-compliance, we did not agree with bullet point 1, 2, 4, and 5 of the non-compliant as highlighted in red above, based on the reason below. We regularly send monthly mandatory report to GPB as evident in our files. The procurement transactions of both RFQ and single sourcing are all filed accordingly in separate files. Finance department were never involved in any procurement activities in 2018. For the period under review, there has never been councillors meeting at the GT board where food and refreshment was catered for. Food and refreshment were mainly provided during monthly board meetings, and catering was also provided by our sister institution GTHI.
Page 14. The table below shows some of the missing transactions and procurements that were conducted by non-members of the SPU during the period under review. Suppliers, descriptions, amount, and date. Royal insurance, staff insurance, 834,862.53, dated 28 December 2018. NASA Farm Manufacturing, motor, battery, tires, and radios, 33,500, date 18 January 2018. Hydra Carrara Trading, running move, 75,000, date 18th January 2018. Atlas Company Limit, fuel supply, 3,202,548.57, April to August 2018. Atlas Company Limit, supply, fuel supply, 2,387,301.69, January to October 2019. Suitable travel, air ticket, 970,750, 1st of February, March 2019. Suitable traveling, air ticket, 47,800, 8th of October 2019. AP Trading, rain suits and umbrellas, 32,450, 19 August 2019. Implications. The procurement may establish individualized for personal gain, since there is lack of proper control and supervision of the side of SPU. Accountability and transparency are not assured. Cause the use of wrong procedure, which can lead to wrong award decisions. Value for money cannot be assured. Procurement fraud is imminent. Potential conflict of interest. Recommendations. The compliance audit review team strongly recommend that all procurement functions, including air tickets and food items, and any other procurement-related activity, be handled and conducted by the specialized procurement unit with immediate effect as provided for the GTB Amendment Act 2018, Regulation 2019, and the instructions. The SPU should ensure a periodic market survey is carrying out and inform the contract committee accordingly. The procurement organization should address all the weaknesses identified on the functions of the SPU. The SPU should comply with the important provisions of Section 29 of the GPPA Amendment Act 2018 by sending their annual procurement plan to the authority on or before 15th of January each year.
The above transactions highlighted in the table were all conducted by the SPU. However, for the procurement of fuel, this was done through RFQ by the SPU, and Atlas Company was selected as the most responsive bidder. The framework agreement binding the two parties was not executed at that material time.
Page 16, non-compliance. While the review team was informed of the establishment of the contract committee, there is no evidence that the accounting officer appointed contract committee members formally and in written. The contract committee did not approve the use of single source procurement method. Implication. Members of the contract committee can easily avoid responsibility when misprocurement is conducted. Recommendation. The contract committee should discharge their functions as required by section 47(3), 49 and GPPA regulation 18(2). The committee should ensure an acceptance and receipt committee be formally constituted as required by the Act. The committee should provide proper documents authorized to the specialized procurement unit of the internal limit for procurement and create modalities of monitoring the same. The reviewers recommended GTB to request for training of their contract committee members in order to familiarize themselves with the basic principles of public procurement.
Management response. The contract committee members mentioned in the table does not represent the realities of the members during the period under review, that's 2018. However, the following were selected members of the contract committee: Lamin Fati, chairman; Aida Jengjai, member; Adam Njai, member; Usenu Sengo, member; Abubakar S. Kamara, member; Aishatu Baji, SPU secretary. The availability of funds are always indicated on the requisition for a particular procurement by the budget holder. However, delayed payment has nothing to do with the contract committee. As for the single source procurement method, GT board has a threshold of certain complex procurement, which require the intervention of the contracts committee.
Page 18, non-compliance. The Gambia Tourism Board has not established the examination and receipt committee as required by GPPA Regulation Section 133, 134, 135, and 136. There was no evidence of good receipt note prepared and signed by the end user. Implication. Without the establishment of examination and receipt committee, it will be difficult to ascertain whether the procured goods and or services have been inspected during delivery. There is a risk that the goods and services delivered may not conform to the specification or quantity. Recommendation. We recommend that the PO establish the examination and receipt committee as required by the regulation.
No response. We are of the view that this particular finding has no relevance, being that GT board has fully implemented the examination and receipt committee during the period under review. Please see attached the evidence for your confirmation.
Page 21, non-compliance. The PO did not maintain a comprehensive and individual file for all procurement activities. However, the entire procurement files review are incomplete in contravention of GPPA Amendment Act Section 35(2). There are no delivery notes and receipt attached, and in some instances, no good receipt notes in some procurement files. The files are not marked with the relevant procurement reference and frequently codification. No control mechanism for fuel, no pocket ledger, no proof that all items claimed to have been procured are delivered. no delivery note to ascertain whether the end user received the items or not for spare parts. Implication, missing files may be difficult to trace. Proper assessment of procurement records is challenging, and the lack of receipt in the procurement files may imply that the procurement is not complete. It will be difficult to ascertain whether the goods received were used for its purpose or not. Accountability cannot be assured. Recommendation: the PO should ensure that procurement procedures are documented and filed, including all documents related to procurement conduct. The management should carry out training on procurement record management for the staff of SPU.
Management response. Is it page 22?
Yes, page 22.
You skip page 20.
Okay. The procurement transactions are all filed accordingly and in sequence order as indicated in the requisition form from the user department, which in return is translated to the GTB form 100. There is a control mechanism in place for fuel procurement and its distribution respectively. Admin does the coordination while the distribution, whilst finance department carried out monthly fuel reconciliation. The SPU always makes sure that the suppliers duly delivered procured items with delivery note attached. The examination and receipt committee examine the items for confirmation with the right quality and quantity delivered before being handed over to the user. We did not agree with the above finding mentioned above, as our procurement transactions are all kept in separate files as indicated on during the review exercise. And however, the attached supporting documents such as receipts and invoices could be missing in some instances during photocopying of the original documents filed for the purpose of SPU record files. Purchase ledger was provided to your reviewing audit team by the finance department during the review processes together with the supplier list.
Page 23, non-compliant. Gambia Tourism Board had not submitted an annual procurement plan for the period under review, as stipulated in section 29 of the Act. Implications: there is the risk of unplanned expenditure. Funds appropriate for specific items may not be used as budgeted. The objectives set forth in section 3 of the Act may be defeated. Value for money may not be achieved if the procurement is not planned. Recommendation: the GT board is obliged to comply with the important provisions in section 29 of the GTB Amendment Act 2018 by sending their annual procurement plan to the authority on or before 15th January every year.
It's page 24, yeah?
Yes, page 24.
The GTB board has fully complied with the above findings as procurement plan for the year 2018 and 20 has been submitted to your authority and evidence of your response is attached. The GT board has not in any case entered into a business with a non-registered supplier, as that violates your act, and GT board is always using your website to guide us on the list of registered suppliers and advocating for their registered GPPA certificate before giving them business, and if not registered, they will be conditioned to register before we award them the contract.
Non-compliant specification. GT board did not develop specification in some of the procurement of laptops and desktop computers in contravention of section 25(1), 2, 3, 4 of the GTB Amendment Act 2018. The table below shows procurement without specification. Item: office fridge, kettles and dispenser. Reference number PV number 71321. Amounts 77,900 to TV LG. PV number 17311 amount 31,900. Implication: value for money may not attain, quality could be compromised. Our decision is likely to be discriminatory instead of responsiveness. Recommendations: the GT board should ensure that the required specifications are generated for all procurements, even the procurement of laptops and desktop computers, in line with Section 25 of the GTB Amendment Act. There should be a clear description of items required.
Management response. The specification for the TV was clearly indicated by the user department, which stated that they should be provided with a 45-inch smart TV, which clearly stated that any 45-inch smart TV is fully qualified for that particular procurement. The specification for a fridge was provided as office fridge was indicated in the request, and also 3.6 liter of kettle to be provided, so as to avoid using brand names which would totally disqualify other brand names.
Non-compliant. The PO did not have any specific program in place as way of supporting SMEs and has not applied reference and reservations in each procurement as provided for in GTB Amendment Act Section 36 and GTB Regulation 24. Recommendation: the PO should apply reference and reservation for promote the local industry and provide procurement opportunities to the disadvantaged group as provided in the objective of the Act.
I may respond. The GT board has always been supporting the SMEs by empowering them and giving them business as opportunity is always given to governments such as CNC, Usman, Bob, Cancolas, etc.
Non-compliant. There was no secure tender quotations box for the receipt of quotations or tender from the prospective suppliers as provided for the GPPA Regulation Section 53(3). The staff of SPU and non-SPU members collected quotations verbally from the suppliers which compromised the integrity of the receipt process, which may lead to the judge action practice. Implication: there is a risk that the tender or quotations may be opened or terminated before quotation tender opening time. Fraudulent practices are imminent. Recommendation: for purpose of integrity of the procurement process, in line with the objectives of the Act, there is a need for the GTB to have both the tender and quotation box in secure destinations within their premises, preferable next to the DG office. The GPF supplier should be sensitized to start delivery quotations and bids by tender quotation box, and staff of the GTB should be discouraged from collecting quotations directly from the supplier to eliminate the risk of judge action.
Management response. The GT board has a tender box in place at the Office of the Director General, and the GPA audit team can verify for confirmation. There has never been any scenario wherein quotation has been collected by non-SPU, and we have never engaged in verbal collecting of quotation. We always abide by the requirement of GPPA Form 101, and in some cases, sending emails.
Non-compliant. The PO did not prepare local pocket order in some procurement transactions for the suppliers who won contract. Implication: the suppliers may not deliver the goods or services on time, may lead to conflict between the parties to the contract if one defects in their responsibility. Recommendation: PO should ensure that all the local pocket orders are prepared and signed by the suppliers in all procurement transactions.
Management response. The GT board in most cases ensure that purchase order is provided to suppliers to serve as guides and for the ease execution of contracts.
Non-compliance, page 29. The PO does not undertake market survey and analysis of suppliers and price in the market during the year being reviewed to inform the placing order as required by the regulation. The PO does not negotiate to get better offer as recommended by the regulation 120 for single source procurement. The price of most procured items were exceptionally high. Implications: no assurance of value for money. Recommendations: the PO is encouraged to undertake market research and analysis more often, preferably on quarterly basis, to keep abreast of current trends to inform the placing of order. The PO should enter into negotiation for single source procurement as required by the regulation. The GTB should explore the option to compare quotes for single source procurement. Page 30.
The GT board has fully provided your authority with monthly reports indicating the single source and RFQ transaction.
They jump that one. Because the GT board does not.
Okay, the GT board does not conduct a periodic market survey for the period under review, but your recommendation will be fully implemented by the SPU as soon as possible.
Page 30, non-compliant. Inspection and acceptance committee are not established as part of the contract management procedures in contravention of regulation 132 and 134. Supplier performance review are not carried out to inform future improvement of the suppliers on completion of their deliveries as required by the regulation. No evidence of contract management team in place. No contract document in place, especially for the procurement of fuel from Atlas. Implication: the contracts may not be performed in accordance with all the terms and conditions of the contract. The contracts may not be performed in accordance with all the terms and conditions of the contract. Relevant information regarding the contracts could be missing. Weak contract administration is an invitation to corruption practice. Measurement and control of performance could be hindrance, though giving room for more risks and deviation from the original contract. Recommendation: PO should enhance management and administration of the procurement contracts as provided for in Acts and Regulation, and is advisable for file key aspects of the contract performance as part of the procurement records management.
Management response. The GT board has a contract management in place, especially when it comes to complex procurement, which are normally done by the contracts committee and as well with the guidance of the user department. In some instances, we ensure that the GPPA form 014 is used.
Specific finding of furniture. Non-compliant. The procured items was not part of the procurement plan as stipulated in Regulation 25(1) of the GPA regulation and Section 29 of the GPA Amendment Act 2018. The quotations were not open in register of Form 004 as stipulated in Section 35(2) and 29 of the GPA Amendment Act 2018 and Regulation 25. The quotation was not approved by the Contracts Committee. There was no delivery receipt as stipulated in Section 35(2) of the GTB Amendment Act 2018. There was no inspection committee to inspect the goods as stipulated in the Regulation 133 and 1336. Pocket order was not raised by the end user department as stipulated in Regulation 28 and Section 12(7)(b) and 2 of GPPA Amendment Act. GPPA forms such as 101 and 102 were not attached. There was no minutes of the contract committee meeting as stipulated in Regulation and GPPA Amendment Act 2018. No evaluation report generated for this procurement.
The particular procurement was incorporated in the procurement plan as with the narration as furniture and fittings. It is ascertained that various invoices were attached for payment to the particular supplier. Purchase order was raised on a different request on its own invoice. Form 101 was sent to suppliers, but the supplier submitted on their pro forma.
Page 33, non-compliance. The procurement item was not part of the procurement plan as stipulated in Regulation 25(1) of the GTB Regulation and Section 29 of the GTB Amendment Act 2018. The quotations were not opened in a register of Form 004 as stipulated in 35(2) and 29 of the GTB Amendment Act 2018 and Regulation 25. The quotation was not approved by the Contracts Committee. There was no inspection committee to inspect the goods as stipulated in the Regulation 133 to 136. Pocket order was not raised by the end user department as stipulated in Regulation 28 and Section 12(7)(b) and 2 of the GPA Amendment Act. GPA forms such as 101 and 102 were not attached. There was no minutes of the contract committee members as stipulated in Regulation and GPA Amendment Act 2018. No evaluation report generated from this procurement. Non-compliance, page 34. The procurement item was not part of the The procurement item was not part of the procurement plan as stipulated in Regulation 25(1) of the GPA Regulation and Section 29 of the GPA Amendment Act. The quotation was not approved by the Contracts Committee. There was no inspection committee to inspect the goods as stipulated in Regulation 133 to 1336. There was no minutes of the Contracts Committee members as stipulated in Regulation and GPPA Amendment Act 2018. No evaluation report generated for this procurement. Page 35, non-compliance. The procurement item was not part of the procurement plan as stipulated in Regulation 25(1) of the GPA Regulation and Section 29 of the GPA Amendment Act 2018. The quotations were not opened in a register or Form 004 as stipulated in 35(2) and 29 of the GTB Amendment Act 2018 and Regulation 25. The quotations was not approved by the Contracts Committee. There was no inspection committee to inspect the goods as stipulated in the Regulation 133 to 136. Purchase order was not raised by the end user department as stipulated in Regulation 28 and Section 12(7)(b) and 2 of the GPA Amendment Act. GPA forms such as 101 and 102 were not attached. There was no minutes of the Contracts Committee members as stipulated in Regulation and GPA Amendment Act 2018. No evaluation report generated from for this procurement, there was a delivery receipt as stipulated in section 35(2) of the GTB Amendment Act.
Management response. This particular procurement was not for spare parts, but rather procurement of provision and toiletries, which was part of the procurement plan for 2018 and 2019 respectively. GBBA Form 004 was attached as well as Form 102. Refurbishment of Senegambia food stall was awarded to AB Trading and not Lair Group as you indicated. Furthermore, please take note that Form 101 was sent to suppliers, and also purchase order was raised by the SPU and sent to the most responsive supplier, and which was part of the procurement plan.
Page 37, non-compliant. Page 37. The procurement item was not specified on the procurement plan as stipulated in the regulation 25(1) of the GPB regulation section 29 of the GTB Amendment Act 2018. The procurement method is above the threshold as stipulated in section 38 and 45 of the GTB Amendment Act 2018. The purchase order was not raised by the end-use department as stipulated in the regulation 28 of the GPB regulation section 12(7)(b) and 2 of the GPB Amendment Act. The quotations were not opened in a register of Form 003 as stipulated in 35(2) and 29 of the GPB Amendment Act 2018 and Regulation 25 of the regulation. There was no minutes of the contract committee as stipulated in Regulation 28 of the regulation and Section 12(7)(b) and 2 of the GPB Amendment Act.
Let me respond. Note that the construction of Echo Lodge was part of the procurement plan. The procurement was done in open tendering method of procurement, and it was open in the presence of bidders who chose to attend as indicated in the bidding document. That was approved by your authority, and the evidence of approval was provided on file. We did not agree with the above finding on the Echo Lodges, as a separate file was opened for this particular procurement, as the due process was followed from the beginning to the end, and all corresponding was provided to your team during review, as the procurement was done in open tendering and approval was granted by your authority. The bids were evaluated by the contracts committee members, and evidence of that were also provided on the file during your review. The minutes of the said procurement will be provided to your authority. We agreed that the procurement of SUV vehicles were not part of the procurement plan submitted for your review. However, procurement method was followed as it was done using restricted tendering method of procurement, and bids were opened as stipulated in the bidding document that was submitted and approved by your authority for the procurement of the said vehicles. The minutes were all provided during your audit review, and evidence of all that have been raised will be provided to your doorstep for further confirmation.
Page 38, non-compliant. The quotation was opened in a register of Form 003 as stipulated in 35(2) and 29 of GTB Amendment Act 2018 and Regulation 25 of the GTB regulation. The procurement method is above the thresholds as stipulated in Section 38 and 45 of the GTB Amendment Act.
Management response. The expenditure represents cost of acquiring second-hand engine for old GT-Bot 3 vehicle. We could not acquire new engine for a depreciated vehicle, and thus Ibrahim Cham, being one of our good mechanic and who has a history of the said vehicle was contracted to help in the search for a reconditioned engine for the car and fix it to perfection.
Non-compliant. The quotation was opened in a register of Form 003 as stipulated in 35(2) and 29 of GTB Amendment Act 2018 and Regulation 25. The procurement item was not specified on the procurement plan as stipulated in Regulation 25(1) of the GPPA, Section 29 of GPA Amendment Act 2018. The procurement method is above the threshold as stipulated in Section 38 and 45 of the GPA Amendment Act. There was no delivery receipt as stipulated in Section 35(2) of the GPA Amendment Act. There was no inspection committee to inspect the good as stipulated in Section 133 and 2136 of the GPA regulation. Purchase order was not raised by the end user department as stipulated in Regulation 28 of the GPA regulation and Section 12(7) B and 2 of GPA Amendment Act 2018. Page 40. Non-compliant. The quotation was not opened in a register of Form 003 as stipulated in 35(2) and 29 of the GPA Amendment Act 2018 and Regulation 25(5) of the regulation. The procurement item was not specified on the procurement plan as stipulated in Regulation 25(1) of the GPA regulation and Section 29 of the GPA Amendment Act 2018. The purchase order was not raised by the end use department as stipulated in Regulation 28 of GPPA, Section 12(7) B and 2 of GPA Amendment Act 2018. Purchase order was not raised. This thing.
Okay. The price we adopt during the period under review was that at the beginning of every year, we request for quotations from all fuel dealers to provide quotes for the supply of fuel to PT board for a whole calendar year. Upon receipt of the quotations, the contracts committee carried out the evaluations and recommend for the most responsive bidder to be engaged. Thereafter, the SPU is advised to perform the due diligence as required by the GPPA. The procurement of fuel is always factored in the procurement plan, and evidence of that will be provided to your authority. Purchase order was raised on a monthly basis, and the evidence will be provided to your audit team for further verification.
Conclusion. Using the above compliance to 23 related variables and specific findings on some of the 12 procurement transactions for the period of the review, Gambia Tourism Board was found to be 60% and 66% or both, which do not partially compliant with the GPPA Amendment, Gambia Public Procurement Amendment Act 2018 and the Regulation 2019.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the end.
That's the end.
It appears this is a combination of both 2018 and 2019 GPA reports. It's of interest that there are issues of denial and perhaps evidence of tendering. It will be of interest to the committee during the course of the review or consideration can make available those evidences where you deny the findings of the GPA compliance. I guess the consideration is scheduled when?
25th.
Take place on the 5th. 25th. So if you have to appear on that day, make sure you come along with those evidences. So, thank you so much. And then I think we can now proceed to the next presentation This time around is 2019. We've completed both 18 and 19 for compliance, GTB compliance. Now, activity, financial, and management data for 2019. Precisely, we can summarize. Okay.
Looking at the DPPA report, there's quite a lot of concerns that have been raised, but then our management response is that we have satisfied quite a lot of these concerns also. We have been rated 60% compliant. What happens if we provide all this evidence? Does the committee then direct the GTPA to review the standing of the board according to their ratings?
Yeah, that is the person of the committee. I think the committee will be reviewing before the consideration. We will also have time to review and then compare and contrast. Then, as I said earlier on, if you have to be available, you need to present those evidences so that we can ascertain whether actually what you have stated is the point or otherwise. Yes. We can now move on to 2018 after the report. I said 2019. Yes, you can summarize. Huh?
I'm saying if I may say something, please.
Yes.
In regards to the GPA compliance.
Okay.
Yes, the report actually is a combination of 2018 and 2019. And although there are a lot of convergent factors, but the issues that we highlighted in the report, like the issue of fuel, the evidence were not there. Like, although yes, they use 3 quotations, but the law said it must be endorsed by the authority before you engage any contractual agreement with any supplier. And those evidence were nowhere to be seen. That brings all these issues. Yes, GPA forms have been used, but the initial approval was not seen by the authority, by the board. That's bringing these issues. So, in the actual sense, at their level, they may say, yes, we have a contract between board and Atlas. But our end, no, we do not call it as a contract. When the initial approval of that contract has not been seen. That brings some of these issues.
That is not, as I say, if you look at their position, so, as well as the aspect of the law, then we read it too.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair, members of this August Assembly, our colleagues from GPPA, external auditor, the representative of my board chair, as my colleagues, have been presented the 2019 activity report, annual report, and I want to go to the 2019 report as requested by the chairman. Given that in 2019, just like 2018, we have the same departments, so I'll go straight to the nitty-gritties of the activities by the department. Under the marketing department, over the year under review 2019, continue to undertake rigorous marketing activities to increase the number of visitors to the country, consequently, the tourism contribution to the GDP. During the period under review, numerous marketing activities were undertaken, and these include, but not limited to, selected road shows, joint marketing campaign, press farms and press trips, trade shows, just to name a few. As envisaged, the sector continued to register steady growth for most of the year, putting the destination on track to achieving the NDP target of 350,000 arrivals by 2021. Unfortunately, it cannot be reached because of COVID. Unfortunately, in the last quarter of 2019, the destination was rocked by the collapse of one of the biggest British store operators, selling the Gambia as a holiday destination, which is the collapse of Thomas Cook, caused panic and fear across the tourism industry and related sectors. The effect of the collapse was more visible in November 2019, when a decline in the arrival of about 23% was recorded compared to the same period in 2018. it's worthwhile noting that the impact was not as bad as earlier feared. This is due to other flights such as TAP Portugal, SM Brussels, Royal Air Morocco, and other European companies that availed British travelers flying options on transit. As earlier highlighted, again in 2019, had undertaken the following key activities: local and international awareness campaign, trade fairs, press and farm trips, joint marketing, destination, and etc. etc. For the Quality Control, Licensing and Enforcement Department, in 2019, the department had set out 7 intervention strategies to actualize its mandate for the 2019 annual work plan as follows: improve quality control and standards. Inspection of tourism establishments is a measure that GTB board utilizes to assess quality standards in terms of health, hygiene, safety, and comfort in hotel, restaurant, and other tourism-related businesses. In this regard, during the period, the Inspectorate Unit had undertaken inspection and action-oriented engagement with stakeholders, managing accommodation facilities, food services, transport services, and other facets of tourism business to ensure quality services are obtained in the tourism during the first quarter of the year. To this end, a total of 39 hotels were inspected during the period, marking 95% of the total inspection to be carried out during the year 2019. The inspection report highlighted that 2 hotels secured A, which is 5%, 15 hotels secured B, which is very good, and 16 hotels scored good, grade 41%, and 6 hotels scored poor, 15.5% of the hotels. It is also worth noting that all hotels that have fulfilled their personal license requirement were given priority consideration to facilitate the licensing process efficiently. On the restaurants, in respect of the restaurant, a total of 116 were inspected, translating into 119% of the total number of restaurants that were going to be inspected during the period. It is worth to note that 0.8% of the inspected hotels were graded A, 12% scored B, very good, and about 58% scored C, good, and roughly 30% were poor and below standard. Most of the restaurants inspected are located within Senegambia area. The production area of most restaurants need improvement as recommended in each report. It is also worthy to note that many of the poor performing restaurants are housed in buildings not designed for a restaurant, and as a result, the capacity for structural adjustment is very limited. However, the inspectors continue to work with restaurant proprietors to improve, and those failing to meet minimum standards will be forced to close until they do. Guest houses, about a total of 107 guest houses were inspected, marking 107% of the total number of targeted guest houses to be inspected during the period. This is a significant achievement given the need to address the quality standard gap that exists in accommodation facilities. Among these guest houses inspected, it was analyzed that 1% scored A, 70% of the guest houses inspected scored B, 26% scored C, 3% scored poor, and E, which is below standard, cumulative. Follow-up inspections were made in the 3rd quarter to ensure standards were met, especially those with D and E grades. Up-country tourism facilities, a total of 38 accommodation facilities were inspected across the south and north part of the Gambia. The outcome of the inspection had indicated a need to continue bridging the gap in terms of health, hygiene, safety, and comfort of all up-country facilities. The standard of facilities in terms of quality has indicated 5% scored excellent, 24% scored very good, 38% scored good, 11% very poor, 11% scored were in poor state, and 22% scored below standard. Big bars, a total of 26 big bars were inspected, reaching 104% of the total number of big bars to be inspected in 2019. It is worth noting that two among the total big bars inspected were found to be below standard, the minimum requirement in terms of quality standards. Some measures were undertaken in terms of consultation and a follow-up inspection to be sure that the standards of those facilities are improved adequately with the stipulated time frame. Almost all the big bars within the TDA were inspected except those that were not inspected during the period. The condition of some big bars needed immediate attention, especially those with D and E grades. Grant to operators and miscellaneous businesses. A total of 15 grant operators and miscellaneous businesses such as massage parlors, bicycle rental and equipment hires were inspected and licensed during the year of the review. A total of 5 casinos and betting outlets were also inspected. Plans are on the way to inspect more of these facilities and these establishments and nightclubs. Pre-season beach sanitation assessment. As part of the activities of the Director of Quality Control, Licensing and Enforcement is to assess the state of preparedness in the tourism industry ahead of the 2020 tourist season. The Inspectorate Unit on the 8th of October 2019 embarked on an assessment of the state of cleanliness along the beaches of the country. The assessment was conducted from Banjul to Bufut, and there were startling revelations on the state of hygiene on the beaches. The inspectors noted with concern the presence of dump sites along many beach fronts, especially around Ghana Town in Bufut. The report also recommended the need to privatize beach cleansing as there were not enough resources in the tourism, our TESU team, which is Tourism Environmental Sanitation Unit. Environmental complaints. In November 2019, the Inspectorate and Enforcement Unit of the Department inspected the Nassim Fish Meal Factory. This followed news report in Foreign newspaper on November 22, 2019, on a story titled "Bad Odor Cases Away Tourists from Paradise Bay." The newspaper highlighted issues of great concern to the GTB board, and as such, the board sought an immediate remedy. The factory is located in Sanyang Beach in the Combo South District at the fish landing site under the purview of the Ministry of Fisheries, and approximately 1 kilometer from the main highway and 100 meters to the sea. The factory manufactures and exports fish meal mainly to China. The inspectors were convinced that the reports were true, as such from many countries have pointed out that the pungent smell that the company fish meal processing produces, and as such recommended that the National Environment Agency take necessary arrangements. It is also recommended for the strengthening of the interagency collaboration between NEA, Department of Fisheries, and the GT board. Authorized tourism sector businesses. Business operators in the tourism sector fulfill their operational license requirements. Example, hotels, for instance, hotels, guest houses, ground operators, etc., as a means of regularizing and operationalizing their businesses. Therefore, the applicants that have submitted their license requirement to the Quality Control Department were all filed and processed. A total of 98 tourism establishments were licensed during the period. Processed license certificates were issued to the respective applicants without delay. Just jump to the other department. The Finance and Admin Department main objective, as had highlighted before during when I was tabling the 2018 report. I just go straight to the income analysis. So also, I think I should jump that one because Head of Finance will also go there. In conclusion, in 2019, like in 2018, the GT board has been in forefront of various initiatives and interventions geared towards enriching visitor experience through product diversification and quality holiday experience, while at the same time ensuring the communities benefit from tourism in line with the national development goals. Accordingly, various interventions have been dispensed to ensure that geographical spread tourism and increasing the impact of tourism with a view to accelerating the benefits that accrue for the Gambian people as highlighted in the detailed report. Challenges. In 2019, there have been some challenges. One has to do with the encroachment of the TDA due to urban sprawl, fishing, mining, and other activities in conflict with the tourism activities. In the same year, inability to re-enter some of the underdeveloped properties in the TDA due to litigation and slow process of courts. Continued illegal dumping in the TDA and big littering has been also a problem. Heavy reliance on tour operators to bring tourists to Gambia has also a problem. Bomb tourism continues to be a problem of the TDA during this period. Poor condition of tourism infrastructure, example, jetties in Jufure, Tandara, and Janjambure. Beach erosion continued to be a problem in 2019. Negative posts on Gambia on social media, especially by Gambians. Frequent power outage, NAWEC electricity supply has also been a problem in 2019. Frequent and violent demonstrations in the country during the period. Threats posed by bad strike on aircraft due to uncollected waste, solid or liquid, within 13-kilometer radius. Honorable Chairman and members of the August Assembly, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening.
Okay, that's for the 2019 report. We will now go straight to the financial statements and fact by the Finance Director for the year 2019.
Yes, sir. Honorable Chair, on page 9 of the financial statement.
Page
9. Page 9 of the financial statement for the year ended 31st December 2019. Page 9. Are you all there?
2019.
Okay. Shall we move? Okay. Statement of income and expenditure for the year ended 31st December 2019. Total revenue. The total revenue for the year under review was 170,885,213 as opposed to 137,170,804. This shows an increment of 33.7 million or 25%. I move on to expenses. I want to summarize it so I can move on to expenses. Okay. The total expenditure for the year under review amounted to, excluding the UNWTO, 138,572,301 as opposed to 123,357,672. This shows an increment of 15.2 million, that is 13%. The UNWTO for the year under review was 1,531,750 as opposed to 1,472,845. Now the surplus for the year under review was 30,781,162 as opposed to 12,340,287. This shows an increment of 18.4 million or 150%. Statement of financial position, that is page 10, on page 10. The total assets for the year under review, that is 2019, was 201,951,038 as opposed to 110,411,372. This shows an increment of 91.5 million, which is 83%.
Can you please read the total for the current assets?
Okay, let me break it down. The non-current asset, that is property, plant, and equipment, for the year under review was 44,165,347 as opposed to 15,529,725. This shows an increment of 28.6 million or 185%. The current assets, trade and other receivables, for the year under review 2019 was 71,455,864 as opposed to 57,050,778. This shows an increment of 14.4 million, that's 26%. Cash at bank and in hand. For the year under review, the total cash was 66,925,317 as opposed to 26,426,359. This shows an increment of 40.5 million. Fixed deposit for the year under review was 19,404,510 as opposed to 11,404,510. So the total current assets was 157,785,691 as opposed to 94,881,647. This shows an increment of 62.9 million, which is 67%. So the current asset and the non-current asset, if you add them together, what we have is that is total asset is 201,951,038 as opposed to 110,411,372, which shows an increment of 91.5 million. That's 83%. And the equity, retained earnings for the year under review was 88,487,643 as opposed to 57,406,483. This shows an increment of 31 million, that is 55%. Current liabilities, trade and other payables.
You can just read the subtotal.
Subtotal.
Yeah.
Okay. The total current liabilities for the year under review was 113,463,395 as opposed to 53,004,889. This shows an increment of 60.5 million. Total equity and liabilities, which was highlighted up, is 201,951,038 as opposed to 110,411,372. This shows an increment of 91.5 million, that is 83%. So, statement of changes in equity. I think I read it on page 10. So do I need to read it or we can skip it?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then statement of cash flow also. The overall cash flow as a, that is page 12. Cash and cash equivalent at 31st December 2019 was 66,925,317 as opposed to 26,426,359, which shows an increment of 40.5 million. That's the end.
Can you have the management
Opinion.
Honorable Chair and honorable members, once again we welcome you to the 2019 reports. First, we go to the opinion for 2019, which is in the financial statement.
After page 5.
Page 6, yeah.
It's the same financial statement. Let's go back to page 5.
Independent auditors report.
That's page 6.
Page 6. Page 6.
Page 6, yeah.
Page 6.
Independent audit report.
Page 6. So on our letterhead.
Yeah, the page number is not there, but if you check page 5, let's go to the next one. We are the money letter. No, go back to the financial statement.
Yeah, even this in terms of
Yes.
The report that we were just using.
It's not number, but after 46.
Yeah.
It's on our letterhead. Independent auditors report. To the board members of Gambia Tourism Board, opinion. We have audited the financial statements of Gambia Tourism Board set out on pages 8 to 21, which comprise the statement of financial position as at 31st December 2019, the statement of profit or loss, the statement of changes in equity, and the statement of cash flows for the year that ended. And the notes to the financial statements include a summary of significant accounting policies. In our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the entity and its financial performance and its cash flows for the year then ended, in accordance with the requirements of the Companies Act 2013 and the Gambia Tourism Board Act 2011. Thank you. Now we go to the management letter.
Yeah. Page 6. Page 6. Go to the management letter.
The first point on the management letter is on page 6. That's the first point. 2019 management letter. First point is on page 6. That is section 2, accounting issues. Accounting issues. Page 6 on the management letter.
Are you there?
No, not here.
It's here. What are accounting issues? It's here.
Management letter.
We have to go to the management letter first.
Page 6.
2.1 fixed assets management. Medium risk.
Wait a minute.
Observation.
Just a minute. Okay. Seems to be fairly. Are you there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, you can go ahead.
Accounting issues.
Let me help. Okay.
Accounting issues. 2.1 fixed assets management is classified as medium risk. Observations. During our review of fixed assets, we noted that motorcycles were depreciated at a rate of 33.33% instead of 20% as enshrined in the entity's depreciation policy. Implications. Applying inconsistent depreciation policy on assets of the same class may lead to inappropriate financial reporting, thereby misleading those charged with governance in their decision making. Recommendation. Management should ensure that the entity's fixed assets policy is applied with consistency for proper accounting of assets balances and depreciation charge in the statement of financial position and the statement of profit or loss, respectively.
Management response. We agree with your recommendation, hence for motorcycles, depreciation rate will be done as enshrined in the depreciation policy.
2.2 fixed assets management. This one is high risk. Observations. During our review of fixed assets balances, we noted that 4.5 million was budgeted for purchase of motor vehicles and motorcycles during the period under review. However, the total additions of motor vehicles and motorcycles for the year 2019 amounted to 19,902,000. We were not provided with any extra budgetary approval for from those charged with governance. Implications. We were unable to ascertain and confirm the basis for the excess procurement of fixed assets in the absence of extra budgetary approval from the board. Recommendations. Management should ensure that any procurement to be done outside of the approved budget must have extra budgetary approval prior to the procurement being made.
The governing body in its meeting approved the vehicle policy of the board as contained in the approved service rules. It further approved for management to proceed to do the necessary environment and procure the vehicles. This was done from the fixed asset and from the marketing cost.
2.3 revenue, high risk. Observation. During our review of TDA land allocations files for the year under review, we noted that the investors outlined below were allocated lands within the TDA, and some of the evidence required for the allocation were not found in their respective files. First one, there was no evidence of fund availability for the proposed project in line in the files of Transit Services Limited, K&M Atlantic Resort, and Precious Group Limited. no evidence of the applicant's acceptance of the terms and conditions of offer available in their respective files of Transit Services Limited, K&M Atlantic Resort and Precious Group Limited. There was no evidence of project appraisal report in the respective files of the investors prepared and appraised for the consideration of the Lands Committee. Implications. TDA levy is significant source of revenue for the entity, and inconsistency in land allocation procedures could lead to serious potential revenue leakages. Recommendation. We recommend that the entity reviews its TDA land allocation procedures and apply the due processes consistently.
Manager response. Following on to Cabinet's approval of the conversion from TDA deposits to TDA levy, it was resolved that proving of funding was no longer a key requirement, as investors or promoters are required to pay 5% of their investment value as levy and are given 18 months to complete or significantly complete their projects, failing which the land will be reposed and they will not be refunded any monies paid to the board. It accepted that the only adequate proof of funding is letter of credit, which would be a key burden and costly to investors. So hence, removal of source of funding as a requirement.
2.4 Administrative expenses, high risk. Observation. During our review of administrative expenses, we requested the supporting documents in respect of the transactions mentioned in the table below, but we were not provided with the documents during the audit. That's board allowances. The amount is 17,000. Implications. We were unable to ascertain and confirm the validity and completeness of the above disbursements without adequate supporting documents. Recommendation. Management should ensure that all the entities' transactions and supporting documents are properly filed in a sequential order for ease of retrieval when needed.
This transaction was a duplication of posting into the system. It has been reversed in 2020.
Then the rest is the status of prior year management letter, that is the previous year management letter issues that we are already discussing in 2018. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of the two presentations, the 2018 and 2019. This juncture would like to take the opportunity to once more thank you for responding to all our employee requirement to present your 2018 and 2019 reports effectively. As I said earlier on, we are scheduled to appear on the 25th. Precisely at what time? 11 or 2:15 for the consideration and all the evidences that we have in hand. We are denied the imposition of the GBA in particular. I think the conflict of interest that they are providing with those evidences. Yeah, I understand Sport Council will not be appearing, so instead you can come through. Instead of 3. Honorable members, this juncture will go recorded. You can now have the respective reports, you go through them, do your own review, and prepare for the necessary questions where we require clarifications before we can take position on the two reports. On that note, being resolved, the committee meeting for today is adjourned until, for this committee, on the 25th of January, precisely at 2 p.m. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. and those not in favor, please say no.
No.
The ayes have it. Anything is here? No, so you want to continue? Don't mind. The meeting is now adjourned until 25th of this month at 2 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.